Hello again, MangaMatt here with the May manga update. Here's one that I probably haven't read in maybe several years. This is Vagabond BIG Edition Volume 12, which comprises, I believe, volumes 30, no, 12, volume 12, 34 through 36 of the regular size Vagabond volumes, which I believe 37 is came out a little while ago, I guess. So probably be another couple years before Big Edition 13 comes out. But I do like that this at least doesn't rely too heavily on continuity. It's mostly still Musashi dealing with a lot of the aftermath of him essentially taking down an entire dojo of swordsmen and figuring out really kind of what to do with the rest of his life. The most profound thing being that he comes across this small farming village in which he decides to sort of reinvent himself as a farmer. He finds a small farming village that will periodically flood, which means that the village doesn't really have a means of growing crops, and as a result, they live kind of a very sort of bandit lifestyle. They're very selfish. It's always dog eat dog, and Musashi, he kind of figures that why would you try and live like this, because he before he became a swordsman, he lived from a farming family, and so he tries at first. Maybe they just don't know how to do it, so he does a little bit of farming, but even what little he tries to do fails miserably. And he even shacks up with a little 12-year-old kid, 8 or 12-year-old kid whose dad was kind of a samurai, and he also gets sort of mentored by this old man who lives just on the outskirts of the village, who actually works to harvest rice every season and will usually share it with a lot of the village members who need it the most. But the interesting part in this story, though, is that Musashi is actually taking on his own kind of adversary. The adversary being basically nature itself. He becomes so fascinated and enamored with the concept of water and how water Bruce Lee kind of touched on this too in various quotes of his, where he talks about how water can at once be calm and then the next moment be a raging torrent. How water is always reactionary. It conforms to its container. It doesn't define itself by any given shape. And Musashi, in a way, comes to this similar kind of realization, and it allows him to meditate on the essence of being like water, and through it, and through also working tirelessly to try and cultivate the land and to make it to where it doesn't flood all the time, and then how to redirect the water to this force that was originally making it to where the village couldn't be inhabitable. He is able to redirect the water and actually manage it to where they can actually redirect the water and actually turn it into a rice paddy field, albeit a very small one at first, but it's sort of this victory for him that they took this element that was kind of an issue and a hindrance, and they actually turn it into a power and sort of a source of life and kind of an essential element. You know, kind of like how in, I suppose, martial arts in those ways, how you turn an opponent's power and weapon against them. You redirect force to help yourself. It's not really like trying to say that out loud, but if you read into it a little bit, it's entertaining in that way. And also, even still, a lot of the interactions with Musashi and the little boy are pretty hilarious in themselves. You know, how Musashi, he's seen and been through all these horrible things, and the kid is like, I want to be a swordsman too, and he's like, no, you don't. It's really not. It's fun watching you try, but no, you don't. And overall, it reminded me how much I absolutely love reading Vagabond, and definitely go check it out if you haven't already. It's just a shame that Takehiko Inoue takes so stinking long to come out with any of it when he ever does. And let's see, next, What Did You Eat Yesterday, volumes 7 and 8, which, you know, more delicious foods and more kind of interesting dialogue between our two main characters, Shiro and Kenji. Mostly I liked in volume 7 when I believe it's Shiro introduces Kenji, his partner, to meet his parents for the first time, which of course Shiro's parents know that he's gay, but they've never actually met his significant other. So I believe it's for New Year's, he decides to invite him to meet his parents, and it's kind of funny how their interaction kind of goes, because the parents they assumed, I guess, that since Shiro always dressed, you know, in very proper male attire, that they would naturally assume that Kenji would be the way they were seeing it, and honestly how a lot of people, I suppose, view gay couples, is that, you know, there's got to be the man and the woman in a relationship, even if it's a homosexual relationship, that there's supposed to be that kind of dynamic, and they, I guess, assumed that when Shiro introduced Kenji, and Kenji's also wearing male, very sort of male attire, that then they kind of had the realization, maybe Shiro's maybe our son's the woman in the relationship. Like that's kind of like, they're thinking like that's the worst thing now. Like at first they were kind of accepting of their son's lifestyle choice, or their son's lifestyle. And then I guess the way they rationalized it was that, well, okay, if, you know, he's gay, but he's still going to be the man in the gay relationship, at least we have that. And then it kind of stirs them up again. It's just kind of this funny sort of moment that you know people actually go through this. There are people that do go through that when they're confronted with a gay couple. So I thought that was funny. And again, there's lots more delicious foods that they have in here, including some milk tea sorbet, which seems fairly easy to put together, which I'd definitely look into making that. The only thing is, again, a lot of these foods involve very foreign kind of ingredients that I don't even know how I would find it, like dashi. Like, I don't know if dashi spice or dashi sauce, I don't know if I can even find that at a regular grocery store, or something like a lot of these sort of radishes. I don't know if you can find those large white radishes at grocery stores either. And you know, I just wish that a lot more of them were easier to find and make. Or like I think they have in here like anchovies. I don't know if you can buy anchovies. They do also do a recipe for brownies in volume 8, which also looks absolutely delicious. Which kind of, I guess, according to this volume, I guess Japanese people don't tend to eat brownies. Like, you know, since I've ever been alive, I've known of brownies. So the idea that brownies are kind of this unique item that, ooh, what's that? You know, I guess that was kind of an interesting thing to come across in that. Alright, next up, Alien 9 Emulators, which this is technically the 4th volume of the Alien 9 series, which I previously got the other 3, which I highly recommend getting them if you like the feel like kind of that whole you know, alien consciousness merging with the human consciousness, kind of symbiosis sort of thing, and a lot of this kind of, you know, stream of consciousness, like what does it mean to be a human sort of thing, you know, all of that. But actually they have here, I know previously at least they had you know, the Alien 9 anime bundled with the 3 manga volumes. So yeah, I'm pretty sure you can get it for less than 60, as it says there. But definitely if you're interested in getting it and all of it, you know, get that and then get emulators and you know, go from there. But you know, it's kind of hard. You would think that because this is an unnumbered volume that obviously it would be some kind of side story or something. But no, it's actually pretty much a direct continuation of the Alien 9 storyline from the previous volumes. Kind of all the characters are, I guess, older, and they're dealing with more kind of weirder aliens that are kind of invading the school, and the possibility that some of the aliens are actually growing and evolving, and that's creating more of a threat to them. It was kind of hard to follow. I'm gonna have to, you know, reread all of them at once again to really kind of bring it all in, but still definitely worth looking into for just something very short but amazingly satisfying, with a lot of cool visuals and all that. Then next up, Deadman Wonderland Volume 8, which of course has that great moment in a lot of shonen action series where you'll have, you know, the big face-off between like a lot of the minor characters versus some of the other what do you call it, auxiliary villains. Like, you know, you have that ranking kind of face-off with all of them where they all clash in these kind of head-to-head battles. That's kind of what happens in this volume, where Ganta is sort of having to go and face off against a lot of the Ninben killers, and some of them were then taken and reformatted as Ultimate Ninben killers, and so Ganta and a lot of the other guys have to face off in one-on-one battles. And the other interesting thing, though, too, is that a lot of these minor characters that previously had only just kind of been one-note characters or just briefly mentioned, they all get all of them get kind of a neat little mini backstory for them in this volume too. So if you've been a fan of a lot of these characters and you like a lot of the cool sort of blood-based battle style, it's definitely a high point for that. Then next, Ajin Volume 4, which finally answers a few questions about the nature of the Demi-Humans and exactly how they function and kind of the restrictions or limitations of what they can and can't do, and also bring up a lot of more interesting kind of what-if scenarios of how a society, a government organization would actually treat the onset of a whole new kind of class of humans. Because again, the demi-humans, because they can't die, that would be enough, I would assume, to actually lead to an entire reestablishment of whether or not they even constitute being human, and at least for a time, that would be enough to allow people to say, oh, well, it's okay if we do radical experiments on them, violate their human rights, because again, they're not technically human, kind of thing. It's briefly brought up too in Dance in the Vampire Bund, when a lot of Japanese residents start killing vampires under the guise that, vampires aren't human, so we're technically not committing murder, kind of thing. And even more so in Demi-Human, because again, since they can't die, it's definitely not considered murder. Next up, Genshiken Volume 6, which, second season Volume 6, which actually, again, has that big moment from the first series where the whole crew go to a big doujinshi festival, and especially the big focus being on Hato, the cross-dresser, and Madarame, who Hato has a crush on. A lot of focus is put on Hato in this volume particularly, and kind of him struggling with him and his feelings towards Madarame, and whether or not whether or not that's even something that he should feel, and also kind of other stuff like, should he keep cross-dressing, should he not keep cross-dressing, kind of what's socially acceptable and what makes him feel good and what he identifies with. So it kind of a bit more cerebral, and a lot more of this kind of gray area in kind of drama than you necessarily got in the first series. There weren't all these gripping kind of gender issues in the first series that's being brought up in here, but still good, still like it a lot. Definitely feel for a lot of the characters and kind of the things they're going through. Then Pokémon Adventures Volume 28, which this actually introduces a lot of continuity from the prior series, specifically Ruby and Sapphire, with, of course, the introduction of Ruby and Sapphire, and the revelation that, again, Emerald was always planned to be the third Pokedex holder, and also tying together kind of the sort of bizarre, kind of convoluted path that Toriko, now a Sceptile, and kind of what he had to go through to actually finally find Emerald, who was always planned to be his trainer all along, to finally get there. And then also kind of some reveals of who the final page here is kind of is supposed to be a big reveal of who the knight is, who's been the main antagonist for this entire arc. And I believe the next volume actually concludes the Emerald storyline of, how do they get a hold of Jirachi and all the things that fall out from that. Then next up, Ooku, the Inner Chambers Volume 10, which I thoroughly enjoyed this volume, even though it's gotten kind of difficult to follow a lot of the political side of things, namely, there's just been so many, shoguns that have kind of come and gone throughout this series, and it spans such a huge timeline of ascension and attaining of the throne, and then the begets of who was shogun and then who attained shogunhood afterwards, and so on and so forth. And then this volume, you get a lot more of the politics of just them getting foreign medicine being practiced in Japan, because of course Japan for a long time was very isolated, and more so in this series where you have the notion that they have to stay isolated, because if other countries found out that they had such a small male population that would make them vulnerable to foreign attack, and possibly the other side ramification being that if foreigners were to come in, then that would lead to the worldwide pandemic of this red-faced pox that could decimate the entire world's male population. And also them dealing with figuring out, a lot of this also deals with them working with trying to instigate a countrywide vaccination of the red-faced pox. They've, figured out a way that if they find someone who has a mild case of the red-faced pox, if they can get them and then extract some of the pustules and put the pustules on a needle and then inject that straight into another healthy but not inoculated person, that they'll then get the mild form of it, and then they'll be immune for life. But of course, like even modern day vaccinations, there's the inherent risk, that 0.1% chance that they will react badly to the treatment and get the severe case of the illness and then possibly die. And that happens in here when they inoculate a sort of higher ranking individual from a noble family who's heard about this treatment, and then they die, and that creates a big issue with their push to try and get it, nationally, make it a nationwide mandate. So a lot of those politics in there, it's still, if you like that kind of dry drama and kind of that interesting interplay between characters, it's very heavily character driven. There's, if you're looking for kind of this ongoing, very intricate plot, where it's dun dun dun, it's not really like that. But I still highly enjoy it for being probably the best thing Fumi Yoshinaga has done. Let's see, next up, let's see, Assassination Classroom Volume 3, which again features the kids going on a vacation trip into like a Japanese city, and of course Kuro Sensei has this super thick book on any kind of contingencies that could arise while on that vacation. Pretty interesting. And then also especially the part where a new student is introduced into the classroom, who is in fact a robot. But of course, at first I was like, come on, a robot. But the hilarious part of it being that actually the robot is essentially just a big black monitor that's kind of shaped like, I guess, the monolith from 2001, or if you prefer, the robot monolith shaped rectangle thing from Interstellar, kind of like that, but just with a screen and a face. And the fact that, of course, inside of it has an array of all these different weapons, and the whole point of it being that the robot would try, different tactics, and using its computer brain, it could redirect and reanalyze its tactics and eventually figure out a method to actually kill Kuro Sensei, given enough time. And just kind of the way that, like, Kuro Sensei, like, they kind of found a loophole in him where, of course, Kuro said that he could never harm a student, and the robot is a legitimate student, so he still can't destroy it. But he actually goes in and actually adds a whole bunch of upgrade parts into the computer to actually make it function better in the classroom. Is pretty hilarious. So again, I'm loving kind of this bizarre sense of humor that is Assassination Classroom. Then next, Higurashi When They Cry, Dice Killing Arc. This volume 1, which this is 26 of overall, which I'm trying to think, is this the final volume. I don't think it is quite the final volume, which is again kind of interesting. I thought this was going to be the final volume, but this was kind of interesting in the sense that, given everything that's happened in the series, we haven't really gotten a very centric storyline involving Rika Furude and sort of her trials of dealing with all the things going on in the series, and kind of trying not to spoil anything big, but a lot of things happen to her over and over again, and sort of how she's dealing with it, especially when her initial connection with this being that she's had throughout the rest of the series has sort of become waned and weakened, and she's trying to figure out, how do I reestablish this connection, and how does that work out? Then let's see. I've been getting this series lately, and I've been actually loving every volume of it. This is Saturn Apartments. This is volume 1 through 4. I've also got 5 through 7. But I absolutely love this series. It's kind of the story of there's like this big space station that sort of acts like a ring around the entire Earth, and everybody has left Earth, and Earth has become like this protected nature preserve. It doesn't really say why people left Earth, whether it was like a Wall-E thing and it just got too polluted, or people just liked space better or something. But essentially, no one is on Earth. Everyone's on this space station, and Mitsu here happens to work as a window cleaner. He is a part of a guild, sort of a union of people whose job it is that people from the, people that want to pay for it, they can have these sort of big windows in their apartments, window cleaned, so that they can see the outside, because of course the windows get coated in, I guess, space debris and space dust, and otherwise they would just get completely blotted out and couldn't see anything out of it. And people that want to pay for the service can pay them, and they'll go out in spacesuits and with some wax foam or something, and they'll actually go out, clean the entire window, and get paid for that. And of course, Mitsu is intrigued with becoming a window cleaner, following the tragic death of his own father 5 years prior, while he was out on a job cleaning a window, and something happened to his cable, that sort of his lifeline. It gets snapped, and he just floats away, and he's never seen again. And Mitsu kind of just sort of gets indoctrinated into this group with all these different unique individuals who all have their own reasons for why they've become window cleaners, and also there's a lot of unique interactions with a lot of the clients that would pay to just have their windows cleaned. It's a very subtle and somber kind of series, but it's that kind of sci-fi series that's so, in a world that is so well constructed, that you could actually see how it would actually come about. Kind of in a way like Planetace. Like Planetace, the main occupation of those characters is they're junk collectors. They go around in a little ship and they collect all the little pieces of space debris that are floating around the orbit of Earth, to make sure that it doesn't eventually clank into like a satellite or a space station and cause damage. And it's about their daily lives. And much the same way Saturn Apartments is about this otherwise mundane task, of window cleaning, but window cleaning in space suddenly becomes this very dangerous kind of occupation, because they have to go out into space. They're exposed to all this radiation. Tiny pieces of debris can fly down and hit them, and they're at risk of all of this, and also they have the secondary occupation of where while they're out in space, you know, cleaning windows, that it's also their job that anytime they see any kind of tear or rupture in the outer hull of the space station, that it's their job to either report it or repair it. I think they report it and also do repair work, but I can't remember the exact details if they actually do it or if they just report it and somebody else comes and repairs it. But needless to say, if you're a big fan of sci-fi, I definitely would say check it out. All the characters have unique motivations. There's also this very subtle plot that's going on through the series where a couple of the characters are wanting to actually build a ship to go down to Earth because there's been almost no they feel like there's been no unfiltered data or entries about what's on Earth. Like, all of the stuff they know about Earth has been through some kind of mouthpiece talking about Earth, and nobody's actually they would like to send someone down to Earth who's not a part of like a corporation or something to actually report back what they see, to actually get a good accurate estimate of how things are on the surface. So there's that kind of going on, and the idea is that Mitsu is gonna be the pilot for this mission, and you don't know the specifics of whether or not they're even gonna, like, they're sort of designing the ship. They don't know, they're putting a lot of emphasis on the ship actually making it to Earth, but there hasn't been a lot of talk of actually making the ship able to exit Earth's orbit and get back up, so it's entirely possible that whoever gets to Earth is going to be stuck there, and even whether or not the pilot could even survive it, because the one engineer is focused on just making sure that the ship doesn't destroy itself in re-entry, and the other guy's like, well, what about the safety of the pilot? And they're like, whatever, I don't care, I just care about building the ship. So there's a lot of interesting aspects to it, and it's not particularly long either, or the volumes aren't particularly hard to get, so pretty intrigued with it, see where it goes. Then I also found this, So then I also found this at a Barnes & Noble. This is, okay, the Angel of Ellhemburg. Of course, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but, I'm always a sucker for any hardcover dust jacket manga that comes out, and of course this fits the bill perfectly. It's also by Aki, who she previously did another manga that I really enjoyed, which was Olympos, featured in the back here, which if you haven't read Olympos, I highly recommend picking that up, because it's a fairly thick volume for a good price, and it's an interesting kind of interplay of kind of how Greek gods or demigods, how they would kind of play with the human psyche and the human imagination, and in kind of like a Neil Gaiman kind of way. Like, this is how gods would actually act in themselves if they were kind of real. Like, in one part of Olympus, there's a guy who they ask him if he could beat another god in a battle, and he says, yeah. And he's like, how do you know? And he says, well, I'm a god. We don't lie. So, obviously, if I can say it, then that means it's true, and I don't even have to prove myself. Kind of those interesting kind of conundrums. But in here, the Angel of Ellhemburg, this is actually telling the story of a King Medeth and his knight Lalvin, who, after some kind of a battle that happened before the series started, they gained control of a castle and a countryside, and of course Meldeth has Medeth actually has no interest in really kind of how to be a good ruler. All he has to him is his reputation, his status, and it's up to really Lalvan, who kind of instigates a lot of these things. Like, he tells Medeth that, oh, you have to get married and you have to sire a child to carry your legacy. You have to do this and this to be a proper fitting ruler, and the whole time Medeth is saying how Lalvan, he keeps seeing this angel that always hovers over Medeth, and the angel is always very doting on Medeth, the ruler, and even though he himself can't even see it, Lalvan is secretly kind of very, he's kind of jealous, or otherwise he's very kind of off-put by the fact that this angel is so interested in Medeth, who can't even see him, rather than Lalvan, who secretly, I guess, wants recognition from the angel. And it's hinted at possibly the angel won't come near Lalvan because it can sense Lalvan's crueler intentions at heart, which then kind of creates a sort of complex to him as to whether or not he is a good person, and whether or not he even cares if an angel feels that way. And it's just a very interesting sort of character drama between two people who have very different viewpoints, and who start off as sort of friends but slowly break away, and kind of the fallout of that. It wouldn't surprise me to actually see this maybe turn into a stage play or stage production, because it's just carries itself so well by just the dialogue of two people, and even by extension a lot of monologuing. So definitely pick it up if you like a lot of that kind of character dialogue and drama, especially when it's a very narrow focus. Then next up we have Kazan, or Kazan, or Kazan. This is a 7-volume fantasy series. I highly enjoyed this series. This is the same person who also did Devil Hunter Yoko, which I've heard some people say is not a particularly good series. But Kazan itself, I really dug it a lot. You have this interesting story of a child Kazan who his entire village is destroyed by this water demon. This person who can conjure water destroys his village is already wiped out by this huge flood, and then he encounters this water demon that not only takes away his sister, but then tries to kill his sister, then takes her away and leaves him kind of a broken soul, and he sort of grows up just in this wasteland environment where water is terribly scarce. And then he comes across this girl who also has the ability to conjure water, and they're both trying to get to this one land, the land of Goldine, where supposedly his pet hawk is from. And along the way they just keep meeting all these different kind of characters and villains who also want to get a hold of what's her name's abilities and try and use them for their own purposes. Elsie, yeah. No, not Elsie. It reminded me a lot of Avatar: The Last Airbender, in the sense that there's a very firmly established sort of rule, and sort of the world building is just so well defined in this, and how everything works, that when it builds to the final conclusion of what everything has been about, why Kazan's sister was abducted, what she was being used for, the whole point of these people who can conjure water, and the whole mystery behind the the prosperity of this one nation called Goldine, and all of that together, it just builds to this very satisfying conclusion. I really loved it a lot. I mean, the only thing I would complain is like his hat is kind of this weird kind of cylinder shape that I thought looked kind of goofy at first, and it got a little better. It kind of grew on me a little bit, seeing it as it went on. It mattered less, but you know, if it had been redone to not have the hat or do the hat like a little bit different to make it look better, I would have probably not had anything to complain about the series. And even that's just a nitpick. Definitely pick it up. It's not hard to find. You can get it on ebook or anyway. Really liked it a lot. Next up, Drug and Drop Volume 1, which this is supposed to be a continuation of the legal drug manga series that they previously left, which this features the two characters actually finding this demon that feeds on blood, and how people have been imprisoning this demon to use its divining abilities for their own purposes, and have otherwise kind of starved the demon and kind of forced it to dine on liquor, and actually kind of warp it some, and it's sort of just you also get an interesting cameo by Watanuki from the Holic series, who charges them with the task of finding this demon creature. Otherwise, yeah, it's a fair continuation of it. It'd be interesting to see kind of where they go with it. I'd just be more interested Clamp could just stick with one series and actually like get it to the ending. I mean they're working. They stopped working on Gate 7. They started working on Holic with Holic Ray. Then they stopped working on Holic Ray. Now they're working on Drug and Drop. Now, you know, it's like pick a series and stick with it until you finish it, and then do the next one. I mean, or just like I don't care if you do them all at the same time. Just don't do this kind of stop and go kind of thing. You know, that's all I'm saying. Next up, Toriko Volume 27, which features Toriko with his interesting new kind of way of fighting, which involves him using what's known as the ultimate routine technique, which essentially means it's kind of like a visualization technique, wherein Toriko, if he can visualize kind of what he's gonna do, it makes his abilities more powerful if he can envision how he's gonna do it before he does it, which further cements him doing it properly and not messing up or anything. It's kind of a neat idea in practice. And then also the big reveal near the end of this volume of a previously thought no longer around character who'd only been mentioned in kind of whispers, who actually makes a big reveal at the end here, and also is featured on the spine of this cover, which I think is kind of a spoiler, but I mean, whatever, right? Then next up, Naruto Volume 69, where we get an interesting appearance by Guy, who actually takes on the Sage of Madara, using actually the 9 gates, like fully unleashes all 9 gates at once, which previously was kind of only hinted at when Rock Lee was using it in the Chunin exams. So that was kind of a neat aside for just Guy Sensei in his fighting, and also a neat little backstory for Guy and how he kind of found himself, practicing taijutsu, and Guy's own father, and how they kind of bonded over that. Pretty interesting. I liked it. Then next up we get The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. This is the reprinting of the original manga adaptation of the video game of the same title, which was actually illustrated by Shotaro Ishinomori, who is known for creating Kamen Rider and Cyborg 009 in gorgeous full color illustrations. This is definitely like one of the best looking manga that you're gonna get, especially for an all ages book. Like I would see no problem with, like, you know, a parent or somebody getting this for like a kid to read. You know, it's fun. The plot moves at a pretty brisk pace. There's nothing that's really adult. Like, you know, it's a lot of fantasy violence. So, you know, if they can handle, you know, a lot of kind of just off-panel explosions and you know, fighting and stuff, then, you know, I'd say this is a fun little story. It also helps too that, you know, it goes in the left to right format, which again, that's how it was presented in Nintendo Power. The only funny thing here is that one character from the game, I suppose, I haven't played the game, so I don't know how much of this is accurate or not, but there's a character in this story called Rome, who is also a rival to Link for the right to wield the Master Sword, and Shotaro just straight up ripped Cyborg 002 for the design, which makes sense because, again, Rome has the ability to fly, much like 002 did, and of course this isn't the only example ever of Cyborg 002 getting ripped off by a creator. There's definitely Soul.J from Gao Geiger. There's the aerial dude from Rurouni Kenshin, the one that used the bat wings. A lot of places he shows up. I'd say he's probably the most memorable and homaged character in all of Cyborg 009. But it's kind of like, come on, Shotaro, did you really have to completely rip off your own character for a story like this? I mean, yeah. Alright, then moving on. No matter how I look at it, it's you guys' fault I'm not popular, Volume 7, which had some really hilarious parts in it, including Tomoko going to the beach and getting buried in sand, but then she's so weak and feeble that she can't even dig herself out of the sand and she's stuck there, or that she goes and visits her cousin and her cousin is trying to help her look pretty, and the whole time Tomoko thinks that she's doing her up to look like a cat and parading her around like a pet, and Tomoko is wondering, like, is this how she kind of views her, is like kind of a pet? And then also you know, it's interesting seeing Tomoko actually with kind of some more regular appearing friends rather than just her being her own introverted self. It's kind of a neat sort of continuation of kind of not only her being introverted and weird by herself, but her being introverted and weird with other people, especially if one of those friends are actually trying to get Tomoko to act more social and fit in better. It's kind of a neat funny thing to see. Then next up we get another Buichi Terasawa series. You know, I did Goku the Midnight Eye before, but this is Kabuto, volumes 1 and 2, which features this crazy over-the-top storyline of a demon who decides to who every generation tries to come back and try and take over the world, and it's up to Kabuto of the what do you call it, of the Karasu Tengu family, who has to fight off the evil demon, the Black Knight demon, to try and keep him from taking over the world. And to do this, he has to unite all the four Tengu spirits of the 4 cardinal directions to fight against him, which of course all of them represent one of those cardinal direction Chinese characters. You know, Genbu, Byaku, Suzaku, and you know, all of them, and they have to fight against him, and it's got a lot of these neat sort of ninja abilities. Like it almost plays out like one of those classic 70s kung fu ninja flicks, like you might see one of the Shaw brothers do, like you know, 5 Deadly Venoms, where they all have these different martial arts styles, and they're always kind of topping the next one, and also all of the artwork and design just looks gorgeous when they're just throwing all these weird ideas at each other. Like at one point, Kabuto has to fight against this weird wheel that just spins and shoots fire and stuff, or they fly around in this big this kind of big like essentially a pagoda that flies through space but has caterpillar tracks, and just all these crazy ideas that you would otherwise probably never see in a kung fu ninja flick. And then there's the sequel, which sort of, after the end of the first volume, where they supposedly defeated the villain, he comes back again for a next generation, where the next generation of the Karasu Tengu has to appear again and fight him. But the only downside is this ends with supposedly Kabuto fighting the villain once again in sort of the distant future, because we noticed that the Black Lord demon has appeared in front of a astronaut on the dark side of the moon, implying that the next volume would have taken place in present time, which I thought that would have been a cool idea. Or even in the near future, like near future ninja cyborg action. Like, that's what I would have wanted to see. But sadly, I don't think there's another volume of it, or definitely not another volume that was ever translated. You know, if anybody knows any details about that, you know, I'd be all about that. Another volume of Kabuto. All right, next up we get Gundam: The Origin, Volume 9, which leads us only 2 more volumes of Gundam: The Origin left. This was kind of a more somber volume, I think. There was definitely some interesting fighting near the end of it, specifically with Char versus Amuro in this Red Gelgoog, which of course I always loved. I think that was my favorite Zeon mobile suit was the Gelgoogs, which from the way it looks in here, he doesn't actually fight the Gelgoog really that much. And then we get some interesting revelations. You know, the White Base finally learns that Sayla is related to Char, and that she's actually been living under an alias. You also get Amuro and Char finally really figure out who they are, and Amuro finds out that Lala, this Indian woman that he kind of had a crush on, is also involved with Char. So you get some interesting drama that kind of develops in this volume. I would have liked to see maybe I'm trying to find out when he fights the Big Zom. Is that like, that's got to be, I guess, in the next volume or so. I don't know. But needless to say, it was a pretty entertaining volume. I've been loving this series like a lot. If you've ever been a big Gundam fan, you owe it to pick up all of Gundam: The Origin. They're just gorgeous, high quality, high gloss paper stock that really accentuates the art style, and just these gorgeous, well done hardcovers. Just really over the top with quality. And then speaking of over the top quality, we get the next volume of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure here, which while the first volume was a slog, without really a lot of vampire action. That is all remedied with this volume, because this is cover to cover, non-stop Hamon technique fighting vampire action. Just William Zeppeli is just beating the snot out of Jack the Ripper, and Jack the Ripper has weird vampire powers, and he's like shooting scalpels out of his body, and they're fighting inside a tunnel, and Zeppeli's like sipping wine, and he's like shooting the wine out of his mouth in sort of these circular patterns, like they're ninja discs of wine, and just it's so crazy and so fun. It is, you'll never see anything like it, except, in JoJo, and the more JoJo to come. I can't wait for the next volume, which is supposedly supposed to wrap up the Phantom Blood arc, and then we'll actually get to check out the Battle Tendencies arc, which has been slated to come out afterwards, I believe. So that'll be cool. Then next up, Holic Ray, volumes 2 and 3, which the conclusion of volume 3 actually leads us to believe that the events of Holic Ray do in fact take place after the main series ended, which is kind of odd. It's in kind of like a sort of dream sequence kind of thing, but it's like I'm trying to piece together exactly what the continuity of Holic Ray is in line with Holic. So it's like first I thought this is just kind of a bunch of extra stories that they just wanted to fit in, but now they're saying that this was supposed to take place after the events of Holic, in kind of like a post-dream sequence kind of thing. And I'm like, give me something, guys. I'm trying to follow you. You just gotta help with me. But otherwise, the stories in here, they're all really cool. Doesn't rely too heavily on a focused plot, and it just focuses more on Watanuki trying to sort of help with people's problems that come into the shop, which was always the thing that I liked from the series. Next up, Trash Market by Tadao Suge, which this is just a collection of various short story manga works by the man, and they're all very kind of like drab kind of manga stories. Like the first story is mostly focused on one man's obsession with the life of Vincent van Gogh, and kind of how he views the life of an artist. Like, where do you draw the line between passion and obsession? Like with the case of Van Gogh, he was obviously a brilliant artist, but at the same time, his brilliance was also kind of his psychosis, and how far do you take things in that kind of mindset? And then other storylines feature one man who just leaves his wife and goes wandering around from place to place, which then prompts a news team to actually try and find this man. And then they find him, and they're trying to piece together his story of where he's been. But even he doesn't quite remember where he's been or what he was doing. But the newspaper people are trying to tell him, this is what you were doing because this is what we've found, and this kind of makes a better story anyway. And he's kind of saying it's this interesting back and forth of a man who just had an episode and just left, and some people are trying to spin it as this kind of bigger story than it really was. And then another storyline in here about kind of these people who go and wait in line to donate blood so that they can afford drinking booze, and just kind of their interactions with each other while they're waiting, to give blood, to get that little bit of money for their services. Overall, it's very dry and it's very alternative kind of manga style. If you liked, Axe that was put out by Top Shelf, or if you liked, a lot of those Goro indie manga, you might like this, but, I didn't really find it that terribly appealing myself. It's very odd that, I actually, get something that I can't really hype up as, like, something worth getting. But it's, like, it's definitely not for everybody. It's not even for a lot of people. It's just, like, it's there. It's there. Then, last thing is the Kindaichi case files. So far I've got here, 4 through 12, and I've already got the rest of it bought and ready to go. I absolutely love Kindaichi case files. I think I actually like it as much, if not more, than Case Closed, which, yeah, that's some blasphemy there from a lot of you Detective Conan fans, but, it really does benefit from being of a longer narrative. You can actually go in a lot of different places when it's like that, and explore some more unique kind of story ideas when you have sort of a bigger format that you can work from and make some cooler storylines. Probably my favorite so far has been Kindaichi the Killer, in which Kindaichi himself is the prime suspect of a murder, and because he was knocked out and then he woke up holding the murder weapon, that he's being wanted by the police, and he's also trying to piece together what happened and how he can prove his own innocence, which creates an interesting kind of unique story in and of itself. To actually have the detective be also the prime suspect of his own mystery, and how he himself has to figure out, how could I have not done this crime, kind of thing. And then even also the latest one here, Playing the Fool, which was a fairly interesting kind of take where a bunch of people are stuck in a winter cottage, and they're trying to figure out, a man is going around killing people, and they're trying to find out who it is and why they're doing it, and the whole time he's setting it up, all these murders to look like the various tarot cards that were displayed on the wall. And again, they do a good job of great setup, misdirection, and even more so the motives behind why the people do what they do is very compelling and interesting, and the only thing I would complain with, like, Detective Conan and stuff is a lot of the times when people are doing the murders, it's usually just a very brief kind of reason, like, oh, I wasn't respected in my workplace, or he stole my work, or I was cheated on and I hated the guy and I wanted him dead, or money. It's always kind of like this sort of explanation that could be summarized in like a single sentence. I did the thing because dun dun dun, and that's it. Whereas in Kindaichi case files, like, it would take several sentences to explain why some of these people were murdering other people as they were. In fact, in Playing the Fool, the interesting part of this is that there's actually 2 murders that are going on, because there was a guy that committed a first murder who you know who that guy is, but then somebody else there blackmails him into committing more murders by explaining to him, I know that you killed that first dude. If you don't do these other ones, then I'm gonna tell. And so what you then get is a murder within a murder, and then the first murderer is killed by the true villain of the piece, and that's an interesting idea of the fact that that initially Kindaichi and you think that there's just the one suspect, but there's actually 2, and some of the murders aren't connected. And that's just this more interesting cerebral kind of take that I don't know if I've even really seen that done in Case Closed yet. In kind of a present tense kind of way. I think there were a few Case Closed files where, you know, the murdering was done because of the explained backstory that they were being blackmailed to commit them. But like in here, seeing it actually play out in real time is a very different kind of unique experience, and it builds a lot more unique tension and suspense to it. So that's all I've got this round, and I think I did a fairly unique haul here. Definitely check me out next month. So till then, have a good read.